Harvey Weinstein spent $80 million on a musical with Daniel Day-Lewis and wrote it into episodes of General Hospital to promote it. It flopped so hard his company got sued for $20 million. Here are 15 ridiculously pathetic Oscar bait movies that bombed at the box office. Nate Parker made a movie about Nat Turner's slave rebellion and called it The Birth of a Nation. Same title as the most racist film in American history. Bold choice, but it worked at Sundance. The movie got standing ovations and Fox Searchlight paid $17.5 million for it. That was a record deal back then. Everyone assumed it was going to sweep the Oscars. This is exactly the kind of movie the Academy eats up. We could have been talking about this as the winner instead of Moonlight that year. Then someone dug up Parker's past. Back in 1999, Parker had been accused of rape in college. He was acquitted at trial, but the woman who accused him took her own life in 2012. You can imagine the fallout when it all came out. People were calling for boycotts, the press coverage turned completely negative, and by the time it opened in October, the damage was done. The movie made $7 million opening weekend, finished with $16 million total. 0 Oscar nominations. Parker's made just one film since. His career was basically over before it started. Harvey Weinstein wanted another Chicago, so he got Daniel Day-Lewis to do a musical. He added some Oscar winners like Nicole Kidman and Judi Dench, and he spent $80 million making it. His company split the financing with Relativity Media, and the contract had very specific terms about the release. The movie had to open on Thanksgiving on at least 2,500 screens. Marketing budget had to be $35 million minimum. Weinstein couldn't get it ready in time. He pushed the release from Thanksgiving to mid-December and opened it limited instead of wide. Relativity was furious because they had their own movie coming out on Christmas, and now they were competing with themselves. But Weinstein's panic move was the best part. He made this deal with Disney and ABC to promote Nine everywhere. They had Dancing with the Stars do a whole musical number from the film, and then they wrote Nine into episodes of All My Children and General Hospital. It was pathetic. The movie expanded to 1,400 screens, breaking the contract that said 2,500, and made $5.5 million, placed 8th for the weekend behind Avatar and Sherlock Holmes. Relativity sued for $20 million. Their lawsuit said Weinstein never actually had the money to fund the marketing properly and called the whole campaign unfocused, disorganized, and inadequately funded. They said his screw-ups directly caused Nine to be a commercial disaster. It made just $54 million worldwide. David O. Russell had made American Hustle a few years earlier. Massive cast, 10 Oscar nominations, made $250 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. So he decided to do it again. Got Christian Bale back, added Margot Robbie, somehow even got Taylor Swift. Then COVID hit. They'd been planning to shoot in Boston, but most of the actors didn't want to travel during the pandemic, so they moved everything to Los Angeles. The budget went from $50 million to $80 million just from the location change and the period piece costs. Industry people were predicting a $12 to $15 million opening. It made $6.5 million, finished with $31 million worldwide against that $80 million budget. After marketing, analysts figured the loss was close to $100 million. All those Oscar winners couldn't save it. Russell was trying to recreate lightning in a bottle and instead lost a fortune. DreamWorks made this movie about a homeless musical prodigy and an LA journalist. It starred Jamie Foxx and Robert Downey Jr. Perfect awards bait, scheduled for November 2008, right in the heart of Oscar season. Paramount was distributing it through their deal with DreamWorks. Then in October 2008, DreamWorks and Paramount ended their relationship. It wasn't friendly, and suddenly The Soloist got pushed from November all the way to April 2009, completely out of awards season. People figured this was revenge. Paramount wanted to push Benjamin Button for Oscars instead, and they wanted Downey nominated for Tropic Thunder, which is funny because Tropic Thunder was literally making fun of movies like The Soloist. The movie was supposed to open American Film Institute Festival. Paramount pulled it a week before the premiere. When it finally came out in April, it made $9.7 million and placed fourth behind Obsessed, that silly Beyoncé thriller. Made $38 million on a $60 million budget. Corporate spite killed its Oscar chances before it even had a shot. The guy who founded Gateway Computers, the cow-spotted boxes, decided he wanted to make a movie. Ted Waite formed a whole production company just to finance a biopic about Amelia Earhart. Got Hilary Swank, who'd already won 2 Oscars. Fox Searchlight came on to distribute and positioned it as a major Oscar contender for fall 2009. But then critics destroyed it. 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fox Searchlight saw the reviews and abandoned their award strategy right away. They just dumped it wide to try to make whatever money they could before word got out how bad it was. It made just $3.9 million opening weekend, finished with $19.6 million on a $40 million budget. Time magazine put it on their list of worst airplane movies ever made. That was the only film from Waite's production company. He spent $40 million on his passion project and it crashed immediately. He never made another movie. Oprah Winfrey read Toni Morrison's Beloved in 1987 and decided she had to make it into a movie. Paid $500,000 for the rights. Then she waited almost a decade to make it happen. In 1995, her production company Harpo Films got a 5-year first-look deal with Disney. Beloved was going to be their first project together. Disney put up $80 million and set it up as their big prestige picture for awards season. They released it October 1998. The marketing push was massive. Everyone knew about it. The buzz was positive going in. But there was a problem. The movie was almost 3 hours. When a movie runs that long, theaters can only show it a few times a day instead of the usual 5 or 6 screenings. Fewer showtimes means less money. It was commercially handicapped before it even opened. It opened the same weekend as Practical Magic and Bride of Chucky. Made $8 million. Came in at number 5. Audiences gave it a C+ cinema score, which is basically a death sentence. 10 days later, Disney panicked. They went to the London screenings marketplace and tried to sell off overseas territories to anyone who would take them. They basically wanted to dump the movie and cut their losses. It ended up with $23 million domestic. International numbers don't even exist because they barely released it. Oprah said later that the failure sent her into what she called a massive, depressive macaroni and cheese-eating tailspin. That Harpo Disney deal was supposed to last 5 years. After Beloved tanked, they never made another film together. If you sat down to engineer a movie specifically to win Oscars, you'd probably come up with something like All the King's Men. It's a remake of the 1949 Best Picture winner adapted from a Pulitzer Prize novel. The cast was Sean Penn, Jude Law, Anthony Hopkins, Kate Winslet, and Patricia Clarkson. That's 5 people who had either won Oscars or been nominated. Steven Zaillian directed it, and he'd won an Oscar for the Schindler's List screenplay. Sony set the release date for December 2005. They talked it up as their major awards player for the year. Then, in late October, they pulled it off the calendar completely. The official line was that it needed more editing and rescoring, that it wasn't finished in time. But when a movie that's supposed to be ready suddenly needs to be delayed a full year, people start asking questions. They eventually moved it to September 2006. Sony was still out there pushing it as an Oscar contender. The movie premiered early at the Toronto International Film Festival to build some buzz. But instead, critics absolutely destroyed it. The movie opened and made under $10 million. The budget was $55 million. Steven Zaillian said later that watching it bomb was a surprise, like getting hit by a truck. Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper had just done Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle back-to-back. Both were huge hits, multiple Oscar nominations. People loved them as a pair. So when they made a period drama set in the 1920s, it sounded like guaranteed awards material. They filmed it in 2012. Then it sat on a shelf for a year and a half. The editing process took 18 months. That's not normal. Most movies edit in a few months, maybe half a year if there are problems. 18 months means something went very wrong. By the time it finally premiered at the 2014 London Film Festival, 2 full years had passed since they shot it. There was no buzz left. Critics saw it and hated it, called it dull, campy, and disjointed. And then every major US distributor looked at this movie and passed. Think about that. You've got Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper at the absolute peak of their careers, and nobody wanted to release their movie. Some tiny label eventually picked it up and dumped it on video on demand with a token theatrical release in 2015. It made $176,000 in American theaters, about $5 million overseas. And the timing was crazy for Bradley Cooper. Right after Serena flopped, he had Aloha Bomb, then Burnt flopped. 3 box office disasters in a row. Though he did bounce back a few years later with A Star is Born, so at least there's a happy ending here. Late 90s and early 2000s, Jim Carrey kept trying to break out of comedy and do some serious prestige work. The Majestic was his attempt at a Frank Capra-style drama set in the 1950s about a blacklisted writer full of nostalgic Americana and sweeping orchestral music. Classic Oscar bait setup. Warner Brothers set this up as their big Christmas release for 2001. They'd already released Harry Potter and Ocean's 11 earlier in the season, and The Majestic was going to be their final holiday heavy hitter. They were so confident they held 500 sneak preview screenings the week before it opened, just to build word of mouth. Then the reviews came out, and they were terrible. Any Oscar buzz that existed died on the spot. The movie opened December 21st in what might be the most crowded Christmas frame ever. That same weekend had The Fellowship of the Ring, Jimmy Neutron, How High, and Joe Somebody. Then Ali and Kate and Leopold opened on Christmas Day. The Majestic came in at number 8, made $28 million domestic, $37 million worldwide. Budget was $72 million. Carrey had dropped out of Death to Smoochie to do The Majestic. Both movies ended up bombing. This one had Robert Redford as a director, and Matt Damon and Will Smith were the leads. It's set in the 1930s. Damon plays a washed-up golfer trying to get his life together, and Smith plays his caddy, who's supposed to be a mystical wise figure helping him find redemption. All the pieces of Oscar bait were there. The problem was Smith's character. He's this mystical caddy who exists purely to guide Damon's white character to success. A lot of people looked at that and saw a really uncomfortable racial trope. The wise black character with no real story of his own who just exists to help the white protagonist. Spike Lee went off on it at a Harvard panel. He said that in the Depression-era South, black men were being lynched left and right, and here's this movie where a black character's whole purpose is to teach Matt Damon a better golf swing. Lee called the whole thing Driving Mr. Damon. That rant, combined with mediocre reviews, killed any awards momentum. The movie made $39 million worldwide against an $80 million budget. Warren Beatty hadn't been in a movie since 2001's Town and Country, which was one of the biggest box office bombs in Hollywood history. Hadn't directed anything since 1998. Then in 2016, he came back with a passion project about Howard Hughes he'd been working on for decades. He directed it, wrote it, produced it, and starred in it. Usually the Academy loves that kind of thing, especially from a legend making his big return. It opened Thanksgiving weekend 2016, made $1.6 million from over 2,000 theaters. Worst wide-release Thanksgiving opening ever recorded. Reviews were lukewarm. Not terrible, just kind of a mess. But what got leaked later was that after a test screening went badly, Beatty apparently dismissed it because the audience was too ethnic to get his 1950s Hollywood references. That's the excuse he gave for why people didn't like his movie. The whole thing made $3.9 million worldwide on $25 million budget. Lost about $18 million and triggered lawsuits between the financiers. Beatty hasn't made another movie since. You know the fake movie Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder? It mocks actors playing mentally disabled people to win Oscars. Cuba Gooding Jr. made that movie for real in 2003. It's called Radio. It's a true story about a developmentally disabled guy named James Kennedy who helps a high school football team. Gooding plays James, Ed Harris is the noble coach. The whole thing was engineered to make you cry rather than tell a real story. A kind of syrupy Oscar bait that turned a disabled guy into a saint or a cuddly pet instead of an actual person. The pandering was so obvious it hurt Gooding's career more than a regular bad movie would have. 0 Oscar nominations, 0 Golden Globe nominations. He got a Razzie nomination for Worst Actor instead. Gooding had won an Oscar for Jerry Maguire just 6 years earlier. Radio still called a career killer. Ang Lee had an idea. He was going to shoot a movie at 120 frames per second instead of the normal 24 and create this ultra-realistic immersive experience that would revolutionize cinema. The movie itself was an Iraq war drama, with Kristen Stewart after her Twilight fame, Steve Martin for Prestige, and Vin Diesel for star power. Lee premiered 11 minutes of footage at a tech conference in April 2016, and the industry people there were really impressed with what they saw. Then it played for actual audiences, and people said it looked like a cheap telenovela shot on video. But here's the real killer. Only 2 theaters in the entire United States were equipped to show the movie at 120 frames per second the way Lee had shot it. So this entire revolutionary technical experiment was completely pointless for 99% of audiences. They couldn't even see what Lee was trying to do. The movie premiered at the New York Film Festival in October and got mixed to poor reviews. Any awards buzz evaporated immediately. By the time it opened, everyone knew it was dead. It opened at number 14, didn't even crack the top 10, made $31 million on a $40 million budget. Back in 2013, Universal optioned this acclaimed documentary called Marwen. It's about a guy named Mark Hogenkamp who gets beaten nearly to death and builds a miniature World War II town in his backyard as a form of therapy. Robert Zemeckis was going to direct it. Zemeckis had won an Oscar for Forrest Gump, but by this point he'd also made a string of flops. The Walk in 2015, Allied in 2016. Welcome to Marwen got put on the back burner while those movies came out and bombed. Steve Carell committed to play Hogenkamp in 2015. They finally shot it 2 years later. Universal positioned it as a major awards player and originally dated it for late November to hit that Oscar window. Then they moved it to December 21st, which put it directly against Aquaman, Mary Poppins Returns, and Bumblebee during the most competitive part of the holiday season. It was already tracking poorly before release, and when reviews came out, they destroyed it. Universal spent nearly $20 million just on TV advertising in the weeks leading up to release. Total promotional costs were probably around $40 million. The movie opened at number 9, one of the worst openings of Zemeckis' entire career. Made $13 million worldwide on a $39 million budget. Studios estimated it lost between $50 and $60 million. Donna Tartt's novel, The Goldfinch, won the Pulitzer Prize and was a massive literary sensation. Warner Brothers and Amazon spent $45 million adapting it into a prestige drama. They hired John Crowley, who directed Brooklyn. They got Roger Deakins, one of the greatest cinematographers alive, to shoot it. Nicole Kidman, Ansel Elgort, and Sarah Paulson in the cast. Everything on paper pointed to an Oscar-worthy triumph. The movie premiered at the Toronto Film Festival in 2019, positioned as an awards season hopeful. Then reviews came out of the festival and they were brutal. 24% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics called it beautiful but incredibly boring. Empire magazine wrote you might have more fun watching a pigeon for 149 minutes. It opened in over 2,500 theaters and made $2.6 million. That's one of the worst wide-release openings in history for that many screens. The movie ended up with about $10 million worldwide total. Warner Brothers lost somewhere around $50 million. Any Oscar push was dropped after the terrible reception. The movie got 0 major award nominations. It wasn't even notorious enough to earn Razzie attention. It just bombed and disappeared. But here's my favorite part of this story. Donna Tartt got paid $3 million for the film rights. She watched what they did with her novel and was so angry about it that she fired her agent. And not just any agent, Amanda Urban, one of the most powerful literary agents in the business, who she'd worked with for more than 30 years. Tartt said she would never sell film rights to any of her work ever again.